recording. We are recording. How are you, Mary?
How are you?
I'm great. So today I just want you, you can't talk too much. That's we're just two people talking. If we say something that you're just like, oh, I shouldn't have said that, I'll edit it out. So don't worry about sharing too much or whatever.
Literally no such thing.
Yeah. I read your post. I was like, I don't think we have anything to worry about. I think I think you pretty much say what's on your heart.
Yes.
I was checking out your latest post. You're like, stop being a bitch. And I was like, hold on now. Hold on. Shit. It's not even, let me get out of bed first now. Hold on.
My mom is like, why the profanity all the time? I'm like, Mom, that's how I talk, okay? And the first thing...
They say that people who curse are more trustworthy.
Oh, well, I fully intend on taking that statistic and putting it in my back pocket. Yeah, it was funny. I was writing that and I was like, that's just like what I thought when I was writing it. And I was like, okay, that's just going to be how I start this post, I guess.
Because a lot of times because I had a blog also, and a lot of times when you're writing that stuff, you're really talking to yourself. There's a part of you're just like, fucking man up, something, and you're like, well, if I'm feeling like this, there has to be other people feeling like this, and then
That's exactly what you're doing. You're speaking to some iteration of you.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm fighting a head cold right now. So as I'm watching you drink that green juice, my fellow is like, you should be drinking that green juice. And I'm like, all right. Have I? No, not yet. You have to attach that feedback to me.
If the technology was there, I would sit you up because I have these bad boys in my fridge. But
I'm here with. I'm sorry. What'd you say? What was the last part?
I said we don't. So you're out of luck. But I hope you.
I feel like Elon Musk is working on that. After he's done with this bullet train whole thing, he'll figure out how to transport green juices in the matter.
It's in his favor.
Yeah.
Be able to do so. I did not know that he was working on a bullet train. I clearly need to start reading the news a little bit more.
Oh yeah, it's supposed to go from actually, because are you in New York or Paris?
I'm in New York. Yeah.
Okay, so I think it's supposed to go from either New York to Florida or LA to Washington. Those are two very different, but I think he's doing a bullet train in New York to Florida. I think that's what they're working on.
Interesting.
So,
okay.
I'm here with Mary from Ritual and Routine, which I love. I love that title.
Thank you.
You work primarily with women, right?
I do. I work primarily with women because I find that with the problems I solve or work with more often, that's just kind of the demographic I speak to. But I do also have some male clients. So I wouldn't say I'm singularly working with women, but predominantly.
Right. I get that. It's kind of most of my clients are women, but it's not intentional. I just find that whatever energy I'm putting out there, Jewish housewives gravitates towards.
Precisely.
so I cater it as such. Tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you have a background in I'm excited to talk to you, first of all, because you have a background in biochemistry. You're traveling the world, and I think that I just watched part of that new documentary, The Game Changers.
Oh yeah.
And I know you have some opinions about that. So I'm excited to talk to you about food and nutrition and how that affects us mentally and spiritually. And I know you go to Moto Yoga, which I go to also.
Amazing. In LA?
Yeah. They have great teachers, great classes.
I've been to that Silver Lake location.
Yeah.
I really liked it.
It's the energy there. It's like I've been to a lot of yoga studios, and there's something very welcoming about the Moto studios. I don't know.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Very tangible. So, I mean, okay, where do you want me to start? Because there's a lot there. I mean, I need background.
Start with your teeth. What are you brushing your teeth with? They're so white.
Stop it. You're going to get very far with flattery here. So yeah, with that, actually, this is a great way to start. If you take charcoal, there's like a special kind. I'll send it to you after. I forget what
about the stuff that makes your teeth black.
Yeah, I know it sounds counterintuitive, but charcoal is really great because it binds to and neutralizes things, and it's a great teeth whitener.
Now, is this a charcoal toothpaste? Or are you talking about?
It's like a specific solution. Also, of course I'm forgetting the name, but I'll send it to you. But
I'm all over that because I just started brushing my teeth with baking soda, and then
that I hear works too.
Yeah, because I'm just like, no matter that, I know Tom's is supposed to be organic or whatever, but it's all poison to me if it comes in a package, pretty much.
Yeah, I feel you.
But so tell us what you do specifically right now, like who you're working with, and
Totally.
what ritual and routine is all about.
What it looks like. Okay, so I am an optimist. I am an optimization advisor. So what that means and why you've never heard of it. First, you've never heard of it because I made it up. I created it. It didn't exist. So I was like, all right, I got to come up with something new. What that means, an optimization advisor is someone who's taking working with that variable to create the optimized version B. And that's what I do in my practice. So what I do in my practice is kind of like a health coach and a life coach all in one. So there are some aspects of it where I'm working with the body. So I'm working with my client to understand if there's anything that is off the baseline in the body, whether that be digestion, whether that be hormones, whether that be energy, I mean, you name it, just like the more nuanced part of your health. If there's anything that's off the baseline there, then I help you using holistic methods to bring that back into balance. So that could be anything from using nutrition to using supplements to using herbs and, fun voodoo elixirs. I mean, okay, not actually voodoo. That's a bad joke, but it feels like it when you're when you're making these little cocktails. So that's like the health coaching aspect of it. But then what I think what makes what I do very different is that we then dive into looking at the mind. So once we're working with the body and we've stabilized looking at the body, then we look into the mind and we seek to understand with my clients what patterns, beliefs, and behaviors are there that are holding them back. And we work to uproot those and reprogram those with patterns, beliefs, and behaviors that are going to propel them forward. So what does that look like in practice? Okay, that could be someone who is struggling with self-esteem, with body image, with their relationship with food. And maybe they're not to the point where they, I have a lot of people who come to me and they're like, well, I don't have an eating disorder, but I'm realizing that I have a relationship with food where I think about it too much. I'm struggling. Like there's a struggle there. There's resistance. Okay. They realize that there's like, that they're taking their world and they're shrinking it down and there's something that's happening there. So in that regard, that's just like, and that's only the like adverse eating behavior example is just like one of the many ways that I see it showing up. It could just be someone who is realizing that there's a belief there or a pattern there that is kicking them in the knees every time they're trying to move forward. So what I do is I help you to really get clear about what that is, and then using different neuroscience techniques, help you to uproot that and reprogram that. And what I think makes what I do so like why my clients get such great results and like what I think what makes what I do so special is that you're really fostering that mind-body connection and you're working on both sides of it to be able to create a very sustainable foundation that is very unique to you. So it's all about, and a lot of times what I find too is a lot of people know lots of the things that we work on with themselves. They know these things about themselves, but they have never had the opportunity to actually put a handle on the idea to be able to understand it. So I find that my clients find sustainable healing because we're addressing it looking at both the body and the mind. So that's what it looks like in a nutshell. I would say that it could be very different depending on the client. So sometimes I have clients who come to me and they come to me because they've they have digestive issues, and they've been to multiple gastroenterologists and had all the tests done. And the gastroenterologist says to them, you have IBS. Good luck. I mean, okay, they don't actually say that, but they're like, that's like the gist that they come away with. But they know that, all right, how could it be something like this wasn't a problem for me years ago? How is it just showing up now? So that's like something that I would be able to help them with. And a lot of times what I think gets lost in the Western medicine is that like something like digestion is not always purely physical. I see a lot where a lot of people have undigested trauma, and that exacerbates something that's a vulnerability within the digestive system and makes it worse for them. So it's not until we work through not only the physical aspect of seeing what's happening there, what, if there's anything that's like, if there's something wrong with the system, or is it pathogenic or whatever, and then also addressing the emotional piece, that they're able to find full resolve. So that's just an example of like what it looks like in practice, but that is what I do as an optimization coach.
All that makes so much sense because when I look at the stats for obesity, a large percentage of people who are struggling with obesity and their weight have been sexually abused. And so when you talk about the mind-body connection, a lot of them are they put on the weight as a protective shield against future abuse. And if they're not aware of that, right, then you're not really getting to the source of it. If you're just addressing the physical in terms of, calories in, calories out, and protein, fat, but you're not really getting to why you're eating, 3 bags of cookies at night and, snacking throughout the day, then it's not sustainable. Like you said, it's all about getting sustainable results because people know how to lose weight. Most people, I think, struggle with maintaining the results and sustaining the results that they've achieved.
You nailed it. I see that a lot is what the actual issue is when you're struggling with weight has nothing to do with weight most often, unless it's, unless you have an issue where it's like thyroid or your hormones are out of balance, then like it's going to be hard for you. Right. But a lot of times what I see is people who are struggling, who are, with the plate, with food, it's because what you're doing is you're looking to shrink down your world to your plate. So either controlling what's going in, what's coming out. And because of that, because you're shrinking down your world or you're looking to like to fill a void using food, or to get that dopamine release using food as more of a drug instead of using it for sustenance. That's such a hard cycle to break. Mm-hmm. Right. And you don't realize that in the moment when you are using food, or when you are shrinking down your world to like have that control. It's all like seeking control there. And I think what you spoke to with like the obesity, like I see that with like the protective shield, like you don't realize that inadvertently your body's trying to protect you. So until you work through that trauma, you might not lose the weight. I've seen someone who has, actually, it was a friend of mine who was eating the same diet, okay, but had like been through a couple of things that happened in her life. That recent time, she had some family members die, and like was having a really hard time dealing with it. So was not able to lose weight, and was still like at this weight that she couldn't understand why she wasn't losing it. It was because her body was trying to keep her grounded. It was like trying to keep her down to the earth. As soon as she worked through that with the same diet, her body let the weight go. So, yeah.
What got you started on this journey? Usually it's something very personal or a family member. What started you on this journey of optimizing people's lives?
Absolutely. So, I'm like, how much time do we have? Because this is a big I'll try to keep it tight and keep it short, but no promises. Okay. So for me, I knew that I always wanted to be a healer. Um, it's just a part of like the fabric of my being. I think that it's something that's just within my family too. My parents are both like just very healing people. My sister's it like also has like this healing mentality. It's like whenever someone's like sick or like something's happening, like someone like, falls and start like has a gash on their arm, we're just like immediately there and like want to help. So I always knew that I wanted to be a healer, but going into college, what that looked like for me, I was like, okay, well, like I'll become a doctor. Like that's what I know. So I'll do that. So I then started studying biochemistry. All the while that was happening in my, halfway through college, I had a sexual assault. And this sexual assault was something that, and I also, like, I should back up. I had a sexual assault when I was a child as well that I had repressed. So this sexual assault in college really like was the catalyst for an immense amount of change for me. I was, when it happened, you don't fully understand what's happening and how it happens. But I knew that I was ashamed and I was afraid and and also was having to deal with the repressed memories of the sexual assault that I had dealt with when I was a child. And I think like a part of me when I was going through that was like, here I am, like I was privileged. Like I had all the things, like I was set on a good track. Like I was going to go to medical school and all of a sudden it was like my life had been flipped on its head and I felt like I couldn't tell anybody about it because I didn't like, I just, when you're in that space, I just felt afraid and vulnerable and scared. So what did I do? I repressed it again, repressed it. So I continue on throughout college. I'm studying to go to medical school, to get ready to go to medical school. And all the while, because I feel out of control, because I'm repressing these feelings and not dealing with them, what happens? They show up in the body. And this is what happens when we don't deal with our shit. Like, can I cuss on here?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure. Like, I don't want to like let it rip, and then you're like,
yeah.
By the way,
I'll label the one profanity explicit so the listeners know. And
okay.
It's all good.
Okay. So, if you don't deal with your shit, it finds another way to show up. It's in your best interest, right? Your body has an innate intelligence about it that if you're not dealing with it in the emotional realm, then it will manifest itself physically. I see this a lot. Okay. So for me, what that looked like, I had never had digestive issues in my life. And then all of a sudden, after the sexual assault happened, I had terrible digestive issues, like debilitating digestive issues, like would call my mom crying almost every day, being like, what's happening to my body? And what was crazy is that like I had this, like I was studying biology, like I was, studying chemistry, and like I understood the body, like I understood what was happening, and I was doing my own research to really seek to understand. And I'm like, okay, it doesn't make sense to me. So I went to all of these different doctors, and I mean, I went to multiple gastroenterologists and did like some really humiliating tests. And like, I won't even go into it, but like, you have to do what you have to do when you're doing it. But like at the time, I remember being in an MRI machine with like contrast up in my digestive system, being like, really? Like, is this what's happening right now? And to no avail. So then it ends up, I'm sitting with the gastro, and he's like, you have IBS. I'm like, well, that makes no sense. Like I was fine. And then now I'm not, and I'm struggling. And all you can give me is this medicine. Like, this is weird. This doesn't make sense to me. So at that point in time, I decided, okay, I need to find something outside of Western medicine. Like not completely, but I was like, I need to look into some other form of healing. And I found solace in yoga. I went to Lululemon one day and there was like a free, like if you go to this yoga studio, you can you have a free class. And I was like, okay, I need something. And like the yoga people seem to like have a lot of peace. So like I need that. I'm gonna go to the yoga class. So from there, alongside there's two avenues of the story happening here. So I'm still pursuing the medical tract, but then I like come into this world of yoga and I immediately fall in love. The teacher that I had, Bethany, is actually one of my very good friends to this day. I was actually just chatting with her a couple hours ago. She was my very first yoga teacher and taught me a lot about what I know, but it opened up my eyes to how the mind and the body are so interconnected, and how you can, if you're not dealing with things emotionally, how they can show up in the body, but also like using yoga, how you can use poses and you can use your body to digest what's happening with you emotionally, to learn how to like work through resistance on a mat, like in a container, so that you can do that in your life. Like you're practicing on your mat, translating into your life. So from there, I realized, okay, maybe there's something there. Okay. So I continue on. I eventually, like 3 years later, become a yoga teacher. All the while decide, okay, I don't want to become a Western doctor because, and maybe I should preface this saying, Western doctors are amazing. And I think Western medicine is spectacular. But for the type of healing that I knew that I wanted to be a part of, it just didn't feel right for me. So then I thought, okay, well, I wasn't quite ready to dip my toe into holistic medicine. So I was like, what if I did research? So then I decided that I was going to go in and I started doing neuroscience research. So I worked in addiction sciences, and we were working with understanding how alcohol and different paradigms affected the brain, which was so interesting and really great. But then I came to find out that people go, actually, do I say this? Fuck it, I'm going to say it. That people go into research because they love medicine. And a lot of them, I wouldn't say that maybe this is like a general as a whole, but I would say from my experience, they're not extremely extroverted. And like it's for them, they still get to have like the joy of the science and helping people, but they're not doing it like patient, face to face. So here I am, like chatting all of them off in the lab, and they're like, "Oh my god!" Like I would just remember, like I have flashbacks of this one gentleman who I adored, who worked right next to me, of his eyes of just being like, it was almost like fear every time I walked in the room that I was going to talk to him, because I'd always talk to him. Anyways, so ultimately, I'll try and make this faster. I am working in research. I'm doing the yoga thing, and I'm like just continuously feeling this feeling of being lost, of feeling like I'm kind of on the right track. Like I'm doing a little bit of the things that I want to be doing, but I'm not quite there, and it's not feeling quite right. So then I decide that I'm going to move to New York and I'm going to try something completely different. So I then go into real estate and I hate it. So that gave me the push to get really clear on what it is that I did want to do and how I wanted to serve, because I'm someone who, like, a job for me is a vocation. And, when I was working in real estate, like I just kept trying to like help heal everyone and like help, if they were sick, I'm like, here's what you can do. And I'm like, this is clearly what I need to be doing. And I realized that I had used both the yoga and understanding how to use the body and the mind, and really like seeking to understand also like the applications of the neuroscience, so let me back up. The yoga and the science, I realized, were both what helped me heal. So being able to understand how I could use more holistic means, so using diet, using herbs, using supplementation and things of that nature, but also just getting really clear and like understanding and isolating different variables that were showing up for me, I was able to heal my digestive issues. but I was able to heal my digestive issues because I wasn't just working with the physical purely. I was working with the emotional. I came to find that it wasn't just my digestive issues were not just because I woke up one day and my stomach decided that I didn't want to be on my team anymore. It was that my sexual assault and all of that trauma and my self-esteem that I had repressed and decided to use the mask of perfectionism to help barter for love, to not have to deal with these things. I realized that is what I had to target. That's what I had to heal if I wanted to heal my digestive stuff. So I realized, okay, here I am having been the product of two different modalities of healing, like Western and Eastern, that together are what provided me with the lasting healing that I have. I need to create this for people. Like I need to create the container for people to be able to experience something that is not just working with the body, but working with the mind as well, because they are so integrated. And looking at certain issues, it doesn't make sense to look at them separately in different systems. That's why a lot of people, will be dealing with things that they're like, I've been to all of these different practitioners and I still can't find resolve. Because if you're going to a purely physical practitioner or you're going to something where it's purely emotional, like sometimes you're not going to find the fit. So that's that's why I created what I decided to create. And it was a long road to get there. But I really, it started off with a blog first of, I created Ritual and Routine in order to help break down the scientific concepts behind health and wellness and make them actionable and accessible. Because there's a lot of trends out there and I feel like we all want to implement them, but we have no idea why we're doing it and how to do it. So that's how it started. And then from there, once I realized, I was in this corporate job, I don't want to do it anymore. I want to do something that lights me up, that I have the ability to help people solve these problems within this scope. It was the perfect marriage. And from there, it exploded. And here I am.
I love it. So such a great story. I appreciate you sharing that with us because so many people have a similar story. And some people that are close to me, I know, have a similar story in terms of being assaulted in their past, and feel like they're alone. They feel like they're the only ones who have gone through it. When we know the numbers are like through the roof, and which is so unfortunate. So yeah, I appreciate you sharing that story and turning your pain into a purpose, which I know is not always easy. You talked about the neuroscience of helping people break patterns. Can you talk more about that?
Absolutely. So when it comes to the neuroscience, and something to understand first is that, so you have the conscious mind, right? The conscious mind that helps you form opinions, that helps you to take in the novelties of the world. And then you have the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind is our computer, essentially. It's what saves us a lot of time. It's the one that says, oh, no, you like this, you like that. You take this route on the way to work. When you're going to work and you're like, how did I even get here? It's like you're like blacked out. It's because your subconscious mind is like taking care of it.
Right.
Okay. Your subconscious mind has all of these different programs that exist to help save you time and to save you and to ensure your survival. Okay. And it drives about 95, maybe the statistic is not completely right, but I think this is just 95% of the way that we perceive things and the way that we move throughout our lives. So you can talk consciously, right? So you can understand, and which is a big part of it, is being conscious of, okay, I have a issue. I'm seeking to understand why that issue has shown up for me, what the root of it is. So you can expose the framework of what's happening within the conscious mind, of saying, okay, I understand that this issue happened because of this thing that happened in my childhood, and that's probably why I'm exhibiting this pattern now. But until you really sediment it with the subconscious mind. So uprooting that pattern from the subconscious mind and aligning what's happening in the conscious mind with the subconscious mind, does it stick? Because how many times do you hear people who are like, I know that this is how it needs to be, but I can't, it's not happening. Like there's still so much resistance. It's because you have to uproot and reprogram and let go what's happening within the subconscious mind. And there are a couple of different ways that you can do that. Like using neurolinguistic programming is a good technique. I use hypnosis in my practice, meditation techniques, essentially just bringing your brain to a state where it has that neuroplasticity to be able to work with and digest those things so that you can implement a new framework.
It completely makes sense, because when you know the source, then you can wrap your head around it better. It's almost like, when you're going to buy a car and the different sales techniques that they try to employ. Well, then it doesn't work on you anymore, because you understand what they're trying to do, and now you can be more objective and detached from the trickery. And it's the same trickery that your mind is trying to sell you on how to feel and on how to view the world. And if you know why it's doing that and the source of it, then you can detach yourself and become more objective. But until you have created that framework and done the work, then it's gonna keep working on you, because
exactly
the source. Yeah.
Precisely. It's like the ability to cultivate the ability to be able to choose your reaction, to be able to see things as they come to you and decide, okay, I'm going to extract what this emotion is trying to tell me, but I'm not going to lean into it unless you want to, but being able to have the choice.
I do this thing called BALE, BALE, and it's an acronym for bored, anxious, lonely, or exhausted. And so when I feel myself wanting to snack or binge or craving carbs, I click through those progressions. I go, wait, am I bored? Am I anxious? Am I lonely? Am I exhausted? And then I have an antidote for each one of those. And that's really helped me to detach from the emotion or the impulse to want to binge eat or snack or what have you, but it's the awareness. I had to become aware of. I have to become aware first of what the feeling is. Is it boredom? Is it lonely? Or so I can figure out what the antidote is. Right? It's like you can't have an answer if you don't know what the specific problem is.
Exactly. And once you say that half of the battle is being able to sit down and say to yourself, this is what this specific problem is.
Absolutely. I have to write it down. I have to journal it every day. What bail is, and then what the antidotes are, so that it's ready to go when I need it. Because when you get the flare up or the impulse, it's so hard to fight. And your subconscious kicks in, you go to automatic pilot, and then you're halfway through the bag of cookies. You're like, oh shit. Like, I was just lonely, like I didn't want I just want to talk to someone, or, I just want to go do yoga or work out or go for a walk, and you realize it halfway through, or sometimes not until you've eaten or whatever. So,
wait, I'm so impressed. That's awesome. I love that. That is like actually what I do. Like what you're speaking to, creating the infrastructure for each of the different triggers.
Right.
Which I love. Bail, like that's awesome. I'm totally gonna use it. I mean, I'll totally credit you.
Absolutely, I'm like absolutely. And it's not mine completely. I was just Googling emotional triggers and eating, and there was some picture, but that's not the word for it. Where it's like a pictogram of
like an infographic or something.
Yeah, infographic. There you go. And it had written out, but it didn't spell it out the way I'm spelling it out. It was just how my brain saw it. And I was like, how do I restructure this so that to make it my own and it makes sense to me? And so that's the structure I came up with. But I have to write it down every day until it becomes a part of me. It's not a part of me. It's not. Yeah.
Well, and that, like, that consistency, like that piece too, when you're writing it down, you're like, and physically writing things, not like typing things, but physically
Right.
writing them, like your subconscious mind, like that is like imprinting it into the computer. So that, like, I could not agree more, like the importance of writing that stuff down and being really consistent with it. When it comes to creating those infrastructure, like the different guidelines for you. And I love how you say antidote. That's great. Like that's exactly what it is. So that in the moment, because there, you know, there's like a 5-second pause where you feel it and you're like, oh God. And it's like, I call it, it's like your eyes go black and it's almost like a monster is taking over you and you're like, it's
Oh, yeah,
coming,
right. Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
You feel it, and you're like, oh, here we go. Hey, I was watching this
Yeah.
military movie, and I call it a sandstorm because, you know, the guy saw, he was like him and another soldier out in the middle of the desert, and they saw the sandstorm coming. And when a sandstorm's coming, there's nowhere for you to go. It's a sandstorm. It's everywhere. And all you can do is just, you know, you stab your rifle into the ground and you kneel down and you just wait until the
Yeah.
sandstorm blows over. And
Mhm.
some, you know, which, you know, that could be a euphemism for meditation
Yeah.
or going for a walk or taking a nap or something like that. But sometimes sometimes the answer is do nothing and just, you know, sit with it.
Relish in the pause. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So you journal. I saw that. Do you have a journaling like technique or strategy or what? You know, do you journal first thing in the morning, whenever you
Mhm.
feel like it? What's your journaling
What's
routine?
my poison?
Yeah.
Um, I'm like, what's my poison? We're talking journals, like so soft. um, so yeah, journaling has been like the reason why I am where I am today. There's something to be said about distilling your mind stuff and being able to really like work through it, get it out of your head and onto paper so you can make room to for more experiences and to understand more of what's happening in your world. So for me, I've tried a lot of different techniques, but what works best for me is to do morning pages, which is from the book The Artist's Way. And the
Right.
idea is that, and are you familiar with it? I feel like
Yes.
that's like a popular one. Um, so yeah, just the idea being that you spend, you know, every morning you have 3 pages that you fill up into stream of consciousness. So whatever it comes to mind, whether that's like, you know, that guy was addicted to me in the line the other day to I need to buy more like Lysol uh, wipes or whatever, to what's the meaning of life. Okay. So like what that does is it is like taking a broom inside of your head and it's sweeping up all of those little thoughts that we feel like we have to hold on to and putting them onto paper so that way we can make room to spend our cognitive calories on the shit that actually matters to us. And we're not feeling responsible for holding things through. It also helps us to digest what's happening in our life. And a lot of times, and I'm sure you can attest to this, being someone who does this yourself, something shows up and you're like, never thought I was going to be coming out of this morning having this, you know, revelation, but here I am.
I like the idea of making room for the cognitive stuff that's you know to come in because it's stuff that's built up in your head. Right now I'm fighting a head cold, and it's making me think that I have all this stuff in my head that I haven't. And I was just saying to myself that you know I need to journal, and I haven't journaled in a couple days, and I was doing so well for 2 weeks, and then you know my routine. I'm off my routine, and and then I'm like, this is why I have a head cold because I got all this stuff up here. It needs to be on a page, and we got to get to, you know. So, I mean, it might have to do with the fact that I flew in on a plane and people don't know how to cough into their
No,
headphones. They're all
definitely not.
coughing. Yeah.
Yeah. Like as you're holding your breath on the flight.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there was a baby behind me kicking my chair, and I was definitely holding in some. I was repressing a lot of frustration, and
Oh, 100%.
yeah, for sure.
the reasoning that happens on flights, like flights are, I honestly, okay, sorry to get on this tangent, but just
Go
to
on the
say what they
tangent. Go
said,
ahead.
I just feel like flights are like an experiment of like the human existence,
Yeah.
because so many, you're just like, you're completely out of your control, and like you're just in this space with like these people, and like whatever's happening, you just have to like, you learn a lot about yourself.
I was like, oh, yeah, that's why you never see a monk on a plane, because we will find out really quickly that all that meditation goes out the window.
Yeah, like legit. So funny.
Can you give us an example of a common pattern that people have? You know, like usually A leads to B, leads to C, leads to D, leads to, does that make
Mhm.
sense, the question?
Yeah. Yeah. Oof. It's like, which one do I want to tackle? Um, I know that we're talking about food, so maybe we can hit that one, but I'll hit two. Okay.
Okay.
So, common patterns. So, as soon as people start to understand that their relationship with food and controlling food doesn't have to deal with food,
Mhm.
most likely,
Right.
um, and understanding that a lot of the time it's their safe way of being able to digest their world, and understanding that where in their life are they feeling out of control, are they feeling resistance, because that is what you need to tackle in order to understand why you're looking to food. When you tackle that, the behavior becomes a lot easier to dissipate and work with, because that's the reason why you're looking to food. It's control mechanisms.
Right.
So I think that there's a difference between discipline and control. Um, and I think there are certain ways of being that are promoted out there that are more controlling when it comes to food. Um, and it also like puts you in the space of, instead of trusting your intuition and the innate mechanics of your body to tell you when to eat, when not to eat, what you want, what that means, that we look to this outside, whatever the popular sources is at the time, to tell us how to eat, how much to eat, to what number. Okay. And if you're not listening to your body and instead listening to that, and not getting to know yourself and your body, and instead, you know, subscribing wholeheartedly to something that um, someone else has created that's not specific to your body, it's going to create dissonance with yourself. It's going to create a separation, a disconnection between you and your intuition. And that's going to cause you to see control. So, what came first, the chicken or the egg? It depends. But I think that's a common pattern. And then I think that being able to understand, I'd say probably that's like the most common pattern. And then as far as like other popular patterns, um, any like fear-based mentality, like understanding like what your fear triggers are, that like perfectionism is truly just a mask that you've created for yourself as a bartering chip, for love and acceptance. And the more that you can be okay with the fact that like the human experience is beautiful because it's not perfect, and really wholeheartedly just accepting those imperfect experiences, and being able to learn how to um, to be perfectly imperfect, that's like when your life will really start to open up. So maybe that's not like a pattern per se, as it is like an archetype that I see. Yeah.
Can you talk more about that? Because that is so powerful, right? Where I listened to, I read, I'm sure you've read Esther Perel.
Oh, yes.
Right. And she talks about,
She's great.
and how, like, the person that you show up as is not the person you really are. And then later on, the real you emerges, and now, but the real them emerges also. and then you realize you're not compatible. But it's because we put on this mask of perfectionism, like you talk about, to barter for the person that we want, versus just saying, hey, I do just like laying on a couch and watching Netflix for hours, or I hate long walks on the beach. We all
Exactly.
we all write what we hope to be versus what we are and who we are at the moment. Can you talk more to that?
Oh my God, 100. My favorite topic to talk about. Yeah, 100%. Because I think that, so, and as being someone who, perfectionism was my way of like security for such a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it is for a lot of people, or most people, of, if I am perfect, then no one can blame me for anything. Then no one can find the flaw. Then no one can not like me or accept me. My work is perfect. Like, yada, yada. The list goes on. I see this translate in like a whole way of being. So like someone who like cannot leave the house unless they are like perfectly put together. Or it can translate, and like looking perfect, and it's like doesn't eat that thing because it could chip away at their perfectionism. Or I see that translate into someone in the workforce who will go above and beyond and is killing themselves beyond belief, and is maybe also like losing parts of their life, their work, because they do not want their work, whoever their employer is, they don't want to give them any reason to not accept them, because they base their identity off of their success. So I think that the real, like the first thing to understand when it comes to perfectionism is understanding that wherever the perfectionism lies for you is because you are cornering a lot of your identity around it. So if you see yourself as being like, maybe you were valued your whole life for like your work ethic and being brilliant and whatever. So then when you come into the workforce, you're like, if anyone challenges me on this, and if anything shows up that is to show me that I might not be as great as like I've been told that I was, that like your identity is going to crumble. Okay. So that's like one of those things, like that's just like an example of like how like those challenging times that can really, that's one of those things that you use perfectionism in order to avoid. So we use perfectionism as a mask, and we develop this mask because at some time or another we created it to protect us, because there was like a very real usage for it at some point in time. I know that me myself, when I was growing up, like, and I didn't come to find this out until I was, doing this work, but me myself growing up, I had this one instance when I was younger where I was at a piano recital, and I was performing this piano recital, and I was probably like 6 or something like that. And after the piano recital, my parents had taken 2 different cars, and they miscommunicated and they left me. So what did I take that to mean when I was younger? I was like, shit. Like, okay, well, I was 5, so I didn't say shit. But like,
I know 5-year-olds who say shit.
I was like, they left me. They left me because I didn't do well. Like, wow. I wasn't good enough. Wow. So from then on, that was like the first thing. And of course, you don't know this is happening, right? When it's happening. But like, you can look back and realize this. I go throughout my life and I'm like trying, like, in everything that I'm doing, like sports, academics, like the way I look, I'm spending hours perfecting this because I'm so afraid that if people see me for who I truly am, that I won't be accepted and loved, and that I will be left. Or 2, that I'm not, it's a reflection of maybe I don't like who I truly am. Then I have to face myself. So at a point in time, again, your brain has that, like, creates that whole framework for you, because it saw in that moment when I was 5, oh shit, like if you're going to make it till you're 18, like you better get these people to like you and do well, right? So you do these things because at the time, it gets you what you need in order to survive. But no one tells you when you're 18, hey, congrats, you made it. You can let go of that. We've got some new programming for you. So then you bring this programming in and you continue on with the perfectionism mask, even though it's no longer serving you. And then it's kicking you in the knees because you're paralyzed. You're in this perfectionism holding pattern where then you start being afraid to even make a decision because what if it's the wrong decision? Right. You're afraid that if you make that decision, then so-and-so's not going to love you. They're not going to respect you or accept you. Work's going to tell you that you're a failure, and you're going to have to stand and look in the mirror and like take a good hard look at yourself.
You know, it's I don't know why this came to mind, but it's like a video game where it's like those Quest video games where in the beginning you get these different weapons, and the weapons serve you on the levels that you're playing at. But as you move up the levels, you get different weapons, and you can't get the old weapons anymore. You get the new weapons. But you know, in life, we try to keep the weapons we had in the beginning because they served us, and we're afraid we're going to need them again. But we haven't recognized that we're exploring and encountering a whole different terrain that will not have any use for those weapons anymore. And so instead of letting them go, we hold on to it. But now it's slowing us down because now we're carrying all these different new weapons with the old weapons, and we're like, why can't I move as fast across this terrain? You know, there's a Zen teaching about, you know, the guy comes to a river, there's a boat, and then he gets in the boat, goes across the river, and now he's like, shit, should I take the boat with me? Because I'm sure there's going to be another river. But, you know, the Zen is like, no, because there's no river in front of you right now, you know, and just trust that when you get to the next river, you'll figure that out. But if you try to carry this boat you're not going to make it to the next. Like, that's going to be the least of your problem. Your shoulders are going to be, your back's going to be all jacked up. You know, at least you're vulnerable to predators. It's like, leave the boat, take what you need for now. And then, you know, that's why I never take leftovers when I leave restaurants.
I love that. I'm so dead. That's so funny.
It's me leaving the boat behind.
Where in your boat? Oh my gosh. You're killing it. I feel like I should be writing. Well, okay, I can just
write it down. You know,
I'm like, I'll listen to this. I need to write it down. I'm like, wait, I don't need to write it down because this is a podcast and I can just listen to it. These are fantastic. I love this is great imagery, and it's just exactly what you need to be able to understand how to like digest what it means to go through the work. And we both know that like what is the point of it, right? What is the point of taking off the mask if it is serving you? Is because your life cannot be fully aligned, and you can't be fully living your power, and you can't have that true, like, just tangible, radiating happiness and fulfillment if you are living as the shell of yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
What are you reading right now?
Oh God,
what's a book that you've read that you've shared with others, or that's you know, that's really resonated with you or impacted you in some way? It doesn't have to be a self-help. It could even be, you know, fiction.
I'm trying to think. Okay, so right now I'm kind of like I'm trying to get more into fiction. So usually I read only nonfiction, and then I'm like, you need to have more of imagination. But I'm kind of reading like 3 different books at the same time. So maybe I'll just talk about why am I doing that?
Yeah, what books are you reading?
Right now I'm reading Where the Crawdads Sing.
Oh, I'm about to start that book.
It's wicked good.
Oh no, I didn't buy that book. I was gonna buy that book. Okay.
It's like at the beginning you're like, what's happening here? It gets so good.
It's so good.
Stick with it. I'm also reading Little Fires Everywhere. And that's just like kind of, you know, for funsies. And then I am also reading, I guess I'm like rereading right now, Osho, Courage. I read that every so often. Funny story about that book. Someone gave it to me in an airport. I'm like, this is some guardian angel shit right here.
It's funny.
I was in an airport in Costa Rica, like looking at like one of those spindle things that have books on them.
Right.
Some girl came up to me and she was like, you should read this book. It's really good. And I'm like,
just randomly walked up to
randomly. And I'm like, all right, God or universe or whatever, like I'll read the book, you know?
Yeah.
And it ended up being like such a formative book for me. Like, so I'm in the process of rereading and digesting that right now because I want to create some programming around it for my clients, because I think that there's some concepts within that book that really it's like a lot of what we're speaking to right now about like breaking through fear. Ooh, that's another one that I'm reading is the book about fear of rejection. What's it called? 100 Days of
of yes, or 100 Days of no.
Something like, hold on.
I know it. My buddy told me to read.
I have it right here. That is so fascinating. So he basically like he does this challenge where he puts himself in. He's like trying to desensitize himself from fear. So he puts himself every day. Okay, rejection proof. That's what it's called.
Okay.
Rejection proof. How I beat fear and became invincible. So it's this guy, and I cannot believe I didn't think of this first. Anyways, here we are. So he every day puts himself in a scenario where he is more likely, so he'll set himself up so he's more likely to be rejected than not. And the whole idea is that he's going to desensitize himself from rejection. So one of the things that he does is like he'll go up to a random person and be like, hey, can I borrow $100? And then naturally, like more likely than not, someone's gonna be like, no, you can't have $100. Right. But then each challenge is like a little bit different. Like he went into like a Krispy Kreme and asked them, I guess it was like the year of the Olympics, and asked them to make a donut, like a giant donut in the shape of the Olympic logo. And he was fully expecting them to say no. And they said yes. And they made it. And it just goes to show. And okay, so actually crazy, and then I'll shut up about this. I got really inspired about this around Christmas time last year. So I was like, okay, I want to do something to like make me more rejection proof. So I did like a string of 5 days where I put myself in situations to get rejected. Like one of what, and you can actually, I think it's still on my Instagram, you can watch it. I like taped it. So one of them that I did is I bought, and I was in Florida, so I bought a plant and I went to a random stranger, whoever happened to be the victim who was on their lawn at the time, and asked them if I could plant the plant in their yard. And they were ecstatic. They were like, oh, you want to plant this plant in my yard? Like, absolutely. You're so nice. Like, blah, blah, blah. And I, the whole time, was like shitting myself because I was waiting for them to be like, this is Florida. Like, you can even like walk on their lawn. They can shoot you if they want to. Right. Like waiting for them to fully reject me. And they didn't. And in that moment, I was like, oh my God, like, this is like what life's about. This is like why you break through fear. Another one that I did is I sat in the middle of like a square and meditated for 10 minutes, and like in like a busy square. Yeah. Just sat and meditated and like
on a street, on a sidewalk, on a bench,
like sat, like it's like, say that there's restaurants that are surrounding a square, right, where they're like pedestrians can hang out in the middle of said square. Yeah. I went to the dead center of said square and like sat down and closed my eyes and like tried not to hyperventilate and meditated.
Right. It's terrifying because you're like, somebody gonna rob me, grab something. Because I meditate in the park sometimes, and it is unsettling. You're like, what is that noise? What is that dangling? What is that? What are those steps? Those sound a little.
Exactly. But it just teaches you how to be like, invincible for fear. One more thing that I did, and then I'll shut up. I like went up to someone at a movie theater and asked if I could taste their popcorn and like talk about like waiting for rejection.
It would
And they did. They let me taste it. I was like, okay, this is
taste
crazy.
their pop.
You know, but it just goes to show that like you can, it's like all like fear is just a construct.
I love it. Now, at the end of first of all, where can people find you? People who want to work with you, what's the best way to connect with you, Mary?
Absolutely. So I think the best place to find me is probably Instagram. So my handle is at ritual and routine. You can also visit my website, which is www.ritualandroutine.net. So that would be the two best places to connect with me. Please connect with me and be in contact. Love meeting new people. Yeah, that's where we can meet.
Fantastic. And then the question I ask of all the guests, and we understand that you are not a therapist.
Yes.
You don't have a PhD. The question is, I always feel like there's someone who's listening in who's on a precipice of committing suicide.
Yes.
Before you kill yourself, what would you say to that person?
I would say to them that you are not broken. This is a program that is running you right now. And if you could sit with this and seek to understand it and seek connection from seek to understand how to gain connection from others, that you will then gain a new empathetic superpower. And I call it like the empathetic bone in your body, to be able to help and serve and understand people on a deeper level than ever before. That's what I would say.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Mary, for joining us.
Thank you, Leo. This is a pleasure.
This is great. And we're best friends now. We got to do some yoga whenever you come to LA. I'm in New York all the time at the Cellar. So,
wait, for real?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's like actually right behind my house.
Oh, great. It's such a great area, great food, great everything. So I'll definitely be in touch when I'm out there. I have a bunch of friends.
Oh my God, hit me up. Yeah, let's hang.
Sure. All right. Thank you so much, Mary. And remember, listeners, this podcast is not a substitute for you going to get help. Call the 800 number, get a therapist, get an optimist. See, I'm doing the same thing you did. Get an optimization.
It's a hard word.
Hit up Mary. Hit up Ritual and Routine. And because your story needs to be heard, and it's value, and we love you. So stay tuned. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for rating it 5 stars on iTunes, and we will talk to you soon.